Across Georgia, school districts are dealing with a severe spike in student anxiety and absenteeism. At the same time, district funding is completely flat, leaving administrators with fewer resources to address a growing crisis. This chart shows the collision course administrators are on. Look at the timeline accelerating toward July 2026. That is the deadline for House Bill 268, which legally requires Georgia schools to have comprehensive mental health safety nets, violence prevention, and staff wellness programs in place. The line for student needs goes up, but the funding line stays exactly where it is. Trying to solve this by hiring full-time in-building therapists creates immediate budget deficits. Staffing a traditional counseling department per school at the current market rate is mathematically impossible for most districts. Pushing the problem outward isn't a viable option either. Telling parents to find private therapy leaves families exposed to massive out-of-pocket costs and long wait lists. Educational leaders are caught in a vice. They face a looming legislative mandate on one side and unavoidable financial and physical staffing realities on the other. MentalSpace School presents a specific case study that claims to solve both the administrative compliance headache and the family cost barrier at the exact same time. The mechanism relies on a digital infrastructure. They assign dedicated, culturally diverse therapist teams to specific schools to provide same-day teletherapy, family counseling sessions, and rapid crisis intervention. This bar chart displays their self-reported success metrics. Compared to the lower baseline average, MentalSpace claims an 89% improvement in student attendance and a 92% reduction in anxiety. We are going to strip away the vendor marketing and analyze the structural trade-offs of actually outsourcing student wellness to a digital platform. The initial data looks promising, but institutional convenience at a district-wide scale always comes with hidden operational costs. We need to look at the financial friction of mental health access. Who pays, and how much effort does it take to process that payment? This matrix lays out the economics. Their strongest advantage sits in the middle column. By utilizing Medicaid infrastructure, MentalSpace guarantees $0 in out-of-pocket costs for eligible families. They also accept major commercial insurance, like Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Cigna, Aetna, and United Healthcare, which typically means very low copays for families not on Medicaid. But look at the third column. This system relies heavily on existing insurance. If a family has no insurance at all, they are effectively excluded from the service, unless the school district proactively steps in to subsidize the gap. Processing those initial insurance verifications creates a secondary trade-off. That massive administrative burden is shifted directly onto the school's front office staff, who must coordinate the paperwork before a student sees a therapist. MentalSpace successfully removes the financial friction for parents, but it directly transfers that exact friction to the school's administrative desk. Moving past the financials, we have to evaluate the logistics of executing digital therapy inside the chaos of a physical school environment. The primary clinical benefit of this model is speed. When a crisis hits, the platform deploys a licensed therapist for a same-day intervention on demand. It also gives students access to highly specialized, culturally competent therapists. Most single districts could never recruit and retain that level of diverse talent locally. The major casualty of a remote model is the complete loss of localized, in-person hallway rapport. A screen cannot replicate a trusted counselor walking the cafeteria or checking in between periods. To offset that distance, schools and families must engineer dedicated, secure, HIPAA-compliant physical spaces just to use the digital service properly. Achieving an infinitely scalable digital mental health program paradoxically requires intense, rigid management of the school's physical real estate. That brings us back to the looming July 2026 legislative deadline for violence prevention and staff wellness. This diagram illustrates the appeal. MentalSpace provides a FERPA and HIPAA-compliant infrastructure that allows administrators to check off complex legal boxes almost overnight. The critical danger of this convenience is long-term dependency. It tightly binds the school district to a third-party corporate vendor for core student safety operations. If a district uses this model, they must maintain strict ongoing oversight to ensure the vendor's digital data protocols remain secure year after year. An 89% improvement in attendance is an attractive metric, but relying entirely on a vendor's remote servers introduces inherent fragility to the school's support network. Instantly checking a legislative compliance box does not absolve educational leaders of their ongoing oversight responsibilities. To answer who this platform is for, we map it on a quadrant chart plotting district resources against student population needs. Under-resourced districts with high Medicaid density firmly belong in this adoption quadrant. They receive high-tier care at zero cost to their vulnerable families. Administrators who are actively triaging the HB 268 compliance deadline are the most logical candidates to deploy this specific efficiency engine. Conversely, districts with ample funding for robust in-building therapy teams or populations suffering from a severe digital divide land in the no-fit zones and should avoid this model. MentalSpace is not a bespoke, localized cure. It is a high-speed efficiency engine designed to solve specific demographic and budgetary realities. Let's pivot the perspective away from administrators and look directly at proactive parents and PTA leaders. The tangible value here is that mental health support stops being a luxury good. Through $0 Medicaid therapy and parent education workshops, it becomes an accessible right for the family. However, this access requires active participation. Parents must secure a quiet, reliable digital environment at home for these counseling sessions to actually work. Ultimately, it all comes down to completely removing the massive barriers to critical care when vulnerable families need it the most. Teletherapy democratizes access and solves systemic compliance issues, but its true success depends entirely on how well both the school and the parents manage the digital bridge it creates.